Hello and welcome to the first By the Minute Arsenal podcast of the new season. We've picked a cracker of a week to start, but there we go. So I'm Matt H. With me is Matt V.
Hello. Good to get started. I think this podcast is going to turn into a form of counselling for us all, isn't it?
I think it could be. We are planning to have extra people in weeks to come, but we've just the two of us for the first one. So there's no way we can't put this off anymore. Arsenal lost 4-3 at home yesterday to Liverpool. We're doing this on the Monday evening, so it's 24 hours ago, but still somewhat raw, to say the least. I've got a list of points, but it's really difficult to know where to start. I suppose where we start is it time for the Wenger out chance yet, or do we give it a bit longer?
I mean, the thing is, he's not going to go until his contract runs out at the end of the season, doesn't it? So he's obviously going to be here until the end of the contract. So the sort of Wenger out shouts now is a bit futile. If he hasn't gone this summer, he's obviously still going to be here for the 10 months until his contract runs out.
Yes.
What goes on beyond that, I'm not sure.
It's not helping, is it? I mean, obviously we started last season in not too dissimilar fashion with the home defeat to West Ham.
Yeah.
And I literally, I wasn't expecting Wenger to go, though who knows these days. But I suppose what I'm getting at is that atmosphere and the pressure is immediately on. I mean, particularly 4-1 down after, what was it, about an hour yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the stupid thing, I thought we looked quite good in the first half. I thought they were quite controlled. It was same old to some extent, but I don't know. I liked seeing Alex Iwobi in the lineup. I was a bit surprised to see that, but I was pleased to see that. Oxlade-Chamberlain not being in the lineup. I mean, obviously he came on later on, but I was a bit. I thought he might have got a spot. But obviously the defence was the main talking point beforehand, and obviously they conceded 4 goals. But Chambers and Holding, I don't think were particularly terrible or no worse than anywhere else.
No, I don't think a lot of blame can be put on them at all. I think for the first half, I'd assume that's why we started with Coquelin and El Neni. They stayed quite deep and sort of shielded them. And that worked quite well. Liverpool didn't really create much. And then obviously on the stroke of half-time, they scored a great free kick. And that clearly changed the whole dynamic because the start of the second half, we didn't look so solid at all.
No, it's 18 minutes, wasn't it? I think from their first goal to the fourth goal,
and it fell apart very quickly. I think if we hadn't have scored our second goal so soon after their fourth, it could have got even worse. But we managed to get some momentum back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It was the hope that killed.
Yeah, yes, as not for the first time. I've got a memory, and again, I'm not always brilliant with remembering the details of these things, but over the last couple of seasons, when we've conceded 1 goal, we quite often concede another one relatively quickly. I could be imagining that, but I've got that sort of in my head as a thing that we have done. The West Ham game away, actually, last season. Was it last season when Carroll got 3 in?
Yeah.
A matter of seconds.
Which is a worrying trait.
Yes, that's not a good thing. It's not like scoring lots of goals very quickly.
So. I also seem to have in my head that we concede a lot towards the end of first halves.
Yeah, that rings a bell, certainly.
Which then, come the start of the second half, changes things a lot, and we're slow to react. But yesterday was not an ideal start to a season where there's already a lot of tension surrounding transfers, etc.
Transfers, how odd you should mention that. Because, now, I wasn't going to mention that yet, but yes, transfers. So, our one main transfer of obviously Holding played yesterday, bit of a baptism of fire. Then we had Xhaka, but he didn't start yesterday. So reasoning for that being, I suppose, the theory that he needed a bit more of a rest, and he didn't really have much time to do anything when he did come on. But
no, he seems to be someone who likes a tackle, but I'm not sure how much ability there is to go with that. He came on and tried to make an impression. I think I saw he gave away more fouls than any other Premier League player this weekend, which, considering he was on for 20 minutes, is a decent feat.
I didn't know that's quite something. I missed that particular. I've been trying not to look at too many stats a day for fairly obvious reasons, but that's one to see. I remember when, God, this is going back a long time, and Freddie Ljungberg had his first game for Arsenal, and he was wearing the number 8, and he scored and got booked. And there's a perfect sort of Ian Wright replacement or whatever he was going to be at that time. But yeah, this wasn't quite the same kind of introduction. And of course, just something I did spot last night. That free kick from Coutinho was fantastic, and I have to the replays I saw of it. I don't really. There was some talk yesterday of blame for Cech for it, but okay, maybe the wall could have been slightly different. But sometimes you just have to take your hat off to something like that. Unfortunately, although of course I don't know if you saw, but the day didn't get any better for Peter Cech because he then crashed into. He crashed his car in the Emirates car park.
I did see that. I didn't know if it was a joke or not. Was that really happening?
It's real. I saw some pictures. Well, unless I've been completely conned by it, I saw some pictures on Twitter showing some significant-ish damage to his front left of his car.
Oh,
whoever tweeted it said something about they thought it might be some kind of suicide attempt.
Had enough already.
Yeah, I quite liked the black humour in it. So yeah, he didn't have a good day yesterday. So but the other Liverpool goals, there is that element of headless chicken, I think, sometimes in the defence. I appreciate, we're playing against players who are, even if they're Liverpool players, are top quality. I only say that because we've had quite a good record against Liverpool, particularly at home over the last few years. But I don't know. The whole team just seems to forget how to defend. But when you have those other moments, I mean, Lallana he had a long time on the ball before, if I'm remembering the right goal, before he actually put it away. And the other goals as well are similar. But I don't know. Is this an endemic thing? Is this something that we see every season almost?
It does seem like that, because if you do think about the goals, there's not really for any of them you can pin down to one player. It just seems that overall we allowed Liverpool quite a lot of space. Maybe for Mane's goal, one of Monreal Chambers should have been a bit more cynical and just brought him down.
Yes, yeah.
Not something we see a lot from Arsenal players,
No.
just bring them down. But yeah, you look at the defence, maybe being such a sort of inexperienced two centre-backs, maybe Monreal and Bellerin should have taken a bit more responsibility.
Definitely, and I think they were two of our players of last season as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But Monreal particularly, I mean, I think they're both very good, but Monreal particularly, I think was very, I don't know how often you can say someone's underrated for them still to be underrated, but I thought he was very neat in everything he'd done. I think, yes, I mean, there should have been more of an awareness perhaps of the, that exactly as you said, the frailty in the centre of defence, potential frailty in the centre of defence, and a bit more support. But Arsene, as this came out today and said we weren't physically ready for it, or came out. Sorry, I think he said this after the game yesterday, which goes a little bit against what he said after the pre-season games when he said we were ready for the season. I think that's the kind of thing that people are really going to react against, shall we say? Yeah,
because you'd assume fitness would be somewhere near the top of the priority list in pre-season, but this sort of trait of not really being ready come the start of the season, whether it be fitness, players, does seem to be a familiar one. We've won, I think, one of our last 7 opening games.
Yeah,
that one was against Crystal Palace in the last minute.
I did see that one. That's a really interesting stat, which I was slightly surprised by, because I'd always had this image in my head of starting the season quite well. I think I was just thinking of that Everton game, the 6-1 or whatever it was. Maybe I'm just remembering that one, even about 6 years later or something.
But yeah, it does seem strange. Yesterday, it was perhaps a mixture of still having some players just come back to pre-season, so they weren't ready. Already having injuries in defence. Obviously, Ramsey and Iwobi have been now added to that list.
Yeah. Well, we're back to the old thing, aren't we? About what is happening. Do Arsenal have more injuries than other people, or is it because they have not necessarily a thinner squad, but a slightly not quite all the top level players all the way down kind of thing, and therefore it's more noticeable. Yeah, I mean, it brings us back to signings. I mean, are we going to see, I can't remember which year it was, 13, 14, when Ozil turned up on the last day of the summer window, like we're coming up towards now,
Yeah.
are we going to see some cash being splashed? Because I must admit, I've always been a defender of Wenger, but for all the good things he's done over the years. But we are at that position now where he's now the most unsuccessful manager, as well as being the most successful one, if you split his reign into two halves. Money, I don't think they can use anymore as an excuse. We know from the financials there's oodles of cash in the bank, but more than that, we know there's oodles of cash coming their way over the next few years just by the dint of existing in the Premier League. So, where are we going to see money? Is it going to be a striker and a defender? Is it going to be? I mean, I don't think we need any more midfielders, even with
No.
some new injuries. But
you'd hope so.
Yeah, we are at that pathetic kind of let's hope so stage, which isn't really what we need.
There were already calls for signing a defender before Gabriel and Mertesacker got injured, and obviously Koscielny not being here. I think there is a sense that Wenger might be waiting till the last week. I think that's where he sees the value in players, where sort of players sell, and that leads to domino effects. But that tactic does sort of lead to us discounting the first 2 or 3 games, almost as though the season hasn't really started until the transfer window's closed, which by that point, you could be 9 points down, which come the end of the season.
Yes.
But yeah, I saw Lacazette scored a hat-trick yesterday.
Yes.
Probably added a few million to his...
Yeah, so the bargain hunt approach is not going to work if these players keep scoring goals.
I don't imagine we have much leverage in any negotiations. I think every club in the world knows exactly what we need. So
yeah, it's not going to be unless he buys another 5'8" tricksy midfielder, which will come as a surprise to everyone, apart from the long-suffering fans.
But yeah, you would desperately hope we do sign a centre back and a striker. Whether he does, who knows? I'm sure he is trying. It's clear to anyone who's watching what we need. And obviously, there are a lot of fans who criticise Wenger for not making signings, but I don't think you can say he's not trying. I'm sure he looks at that squad and sees we need a striker and a centre back. Obviously, he has surely seen that for a few years and hasn't acted, which guess is where a lot of the frustration comes from. These are deep lying problems. But this summer I thought would be the one where we'd sort them out, starting early with Xhaka. I thought that was a good signing to bolster the midfield, and then obviously linked to Vardy. I'm not sure how much of a plan B there was. I don't think they expected to be turned down by Vardy.
No, although he might be regretting that to some extent, although maybe not. Maybe he was regretting it on Saturday, but he's not regretting it come Monday. I mean, it's interesting actually what you say about the end of the transfer window, because we've got 2 more games before the end of August, and then there is a little bit of a break until the Southampton game on the 10th. So yeah, I mean, it still doesn't sound like much of a plan. We'll get through the 2 days. The 3 first games, and then see where we are in that last week. But I suppose that is the plan, such as it is. But I understand completely the idea of not wanting to spend money when you think you don't need to. But there's a point where stubbornness just becomes for the sake of it, and you're not gaining anything, and you're missing the wider picture. I mean, I almost felt when we did spend that money on Mesut back in whichever year it was, that was almost done reluctantly. It was done almost as a reaction to the atmosphere in the crowd, whatever. Now I'm sure there's more to it than that, but it doesn't help when you hear the executives through the summer talk about, well, we can't compete with these other clubs. Well, they can, really. I mean, I don't see any obvious reason why that can't be done. And I'm starting to hope for something, but what we don't need is a bad start to the season, because then we're behind the 8 ball before we even get going. So not a great day yesterday from that point of view.
Not at all.
Not at all. The only other thing I particularly want to say about the game, given how disappointing the result was my disappointment that Jurgen Klopp still can't find a pair of glasses that will stay on his face.
It's a big issue. It is a big issue, considering the way he celebrates and the chaos last season. You'd have thought he would have sorted that.
As a glasses wearer myself, I would be concerned and I'm sure he's not short of a few quid. No. At least twice his glasses, even with fairly mild celebration on occasion. couldn't stay on his face. But
Do you think contact lenses may be the way forward for him?
it wouldn't be cool enough, would it? I think that would be the disappointment.
Perhaps not.
Whereas the only thing I can think on the Arsenal bench is just Arsene with his head in his hands at various points. If he had glasses and they were falling off, I'd be quite pleased with that, quite frankly, if that was the worst we had to say.
Doesn't seem to be a lot going on the Arsenal bench ever.
No.
I don't think I've ever seen Steve Bull talk.
I was just going to mention Steve Bold. I mean, obviously his service at the club is as a player is undoubted, and there was a lot of talk about him when he came into that role of defence will be fine now. It hasn't. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm sure I read perhaps towards the end of last season that the number of goals conceded is similar, and there's lots of other non-improvements, as it were. So I wonder if he's being hamstrung himself or if there's some other issue. Don't know.
I don't know what it is. I'm not sure you'd say players, because we've certainly had some very good defenders in that time. I don't know how much of an influence he does have in training, but yeah, whatever it is, it doesn't seem to be a marked improvement under his tenure.
No, not quite, which is a problem. But on the other hand, having said all we've said about the game, it is only the first game of the season. Very disappointing way to start. And I think the problem people will have is it reminds them immediately of last year and of previous seasons where things haven't started particularly well. Yeah. I remember the Villa defeat a few years ago at home on the first day, which was a similar kind of problem, I think. But we can look forward to the next game, which is against another team. Crisis might be overdoing it, but Leicester lost to Hull on Saturday.
Yeah.
And obviously they're the first defending champions to lose, I think, for ages. It's Monday evening, and I did listen to watch the start of the Monday Night Football coverage on Sky, and they mentioned this. So I'm not going to pretend it's my own stat, but it's the first time in a long time that the defending champions have lost. Given they seem to survive the summer without the huge sort of talent drain that there was concern about, I wonder if next week we're already in a kind of crisis derby between two clubs who would have wanted to start the season better. What would a draw? Would we settle for an away draw at Leicester, given that we beat them twice last season?
I don't know. I think if we get to a stage next week at Leicester, even if we do draw and we're on 1 point after 6 games and we still haven't signed anyone,
yeah,
it could be at riot stages.
1 point after 2 games, not 6 games. But I know what you mean. I
was thinking 6 points in 2 games, combine the two.
No, we could still be on 1 point after 6 games if things continue.
Yeah, well then I think there would be riots.
Yeah, there would be in a very Arsenal Guardian-ish way.
But no, Leicester didn't look great. The first half they did create some chances. Vardy got into good positions, but they didn't look quite as good as they did last year. Perhaps, obviously, teams are going to treat them very differently this year. But yeah, Hull, who scraped 11 players together at the last second, to lose to them seems a bit of a shock.
When you yes, I'd forgotten about the whole side of it. It was literally, wasn't it, pulling a team together they didn't think they could manage. So the away game last year, that was, I can't remember, was it
5-2? Was it?
I'm trying. Yeah, 5-2. I seem to remember it was 5-2. It was a very entertaining game.
Yeah,
we actually went behind in that game, and then Walcott scored, and then Alexis got a hat-trick. That's right, and then Vardy got another one, but then Giroud scored right at the end. Walcott is our penalty taker, apparently. I must have missed this, because obviously I would have thought with Sanchez in the team, he's the obvious penalty taker. I know some players get funny about penalties. Any thoughts on Walcott having that particular role?
No good thoughts. I don't think I've ever had joy at a penalty drain so quickly. As they zoom into him, I thought he was picking it up to give it to someone else. But then I didn't ever have great hope as he ran up. To be honest. I don't know if it's going to be a permanent role. But...
Apparently, he's something I read somewhere today suggests he is the player that will take the penalties.
Right.
There was a hope, of course, because Henry, if he was the one who was fouled for the penalty, he didn't take it. generally that was all. So I was sort of hoping that might be the
Yeah,
if they should instigate that again, even if it's not a rule, they should definitely throw that one in again.
definitely.
Um,
I think for the Leicester game, only one thing is guaranteed, and that is that Vardy will score.
yes, yeah, I think
And
that's
there
fair
will
enough.
be meltdown everywhere.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what's going to happen. I think you do get a bit of a free pass on the first game to some extent. I know the fans are angry, but there's the Olympics going on. There's lots of other sport going on. I wonder if the fans who were there on Saturday will be angry, but on Sunday, but we'll think, okay, we can come back next week. We'll see how we do against it. And 3 points from the first 6 in the world starts to look a bit better. But yeah, I think if there's not, I think it has to be a win next week, personally. And I think that will only keep things simmering along while the transfer window's still open.
Yeah,
If we get to the end of August and we haven't made those 1 or 2 big signings, then yeah, I think that's where things um, really will escalate.
are the likes of Koscielny, Giroud, Ozil, are they supposed to be back for the Leicester game?
Well, my view on this, unless I'm not a sports scientist, I'm not any particular medical person, but if they're in training and they should, okay, not on their first day back, of course, but these are talented individuals who are generally quite fit. My understanding is they should have been back. They should have been available for yesterday, if that would have made any difference. But I don't know for sure. My understanding is, or my guess is, I should say, if they weren't ready yesterday, there was okay, fair enough. I can accept that. I think they I think they will be made ready for Saturday.
Yeah,
Even if that wasn't the plan initially.
it does seem strange because obviously Ramsey played in the Euros just as long as some of them did. Obviously, he then got injured, but other teams have certainly brought players back a lot quicker and not given the same amount of break. You think even if they weren't match fit, just to have Ozil or Giroud on the bench for the last 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that's what I mean, they weren't there yesterday. I can't believe they won't be, as you say, at least on the bench
Yeah.
on Sunday. I think to me that seems like a logical compromise, if you like. I appreciate Wenger we certainly get this impression of him as being very, you could say stubborn, you could say likes to do things a certain way. There's a thin line between those two things, perhaps. But yeah, I think he's got to get them on the bench. I mean, the bench yesterday, the individual players look okay, but there wasn't that depth. There weren't the options that you might expect to have.
I was a bit shocked he did bring Xhaka on. I would have thought Akpom, he scored a few goals off the bench this season. Xhaka didn't appear to be the game changer. Well, in terms of goals, the game changer.
No, in terms of, because you say giving away fouls, if that had been
it would have been ideal for that, but goals perhaps not.
But yeah, certainly, yes, he did seem to have done well in pre-season games, and exactly, why not? You're losing anyway, you know, give it a go. So yeah, okay. Did you have any other thoughts about the game, or was it just want to move on?
Yeah, it's just that I do think had we gone in to half time, it would have been still up. It would have been a very different game because obviously you have a lot of hope going into the first game, but I think there was a sort of genuine worry at the state of our squad going into the Liverpool game. So I think there was a lot of fans were pleasantly surprised by the first 44 minutes.
Yes.
But yeah, it is a massive worry the way they did collapse in such style.
The collapsing is you're absolutely right. I think I was certainly starting to feel vaguely, well, optimistic would be overstating it, but okay, this isn't as bad as I thought, kind of thing. And then yeah, it's yes, it went very wrong very quickly.
Hopefully, by the next time we do one of these podcasts, we have made some signings. Otherwise, the mood may be very different.
Well, we'll see where we are next week, and we can aim to do it. And we may just do 20 minutes of weeping. That may be all that happens.
Well, I think the counselling's worked so far.
Oh, that's good. Well, that's good. Right. Well, in which case, that sounds like a decent place to end it. So we're not quite at the panicking stage yet.
No, we're sort of a step before, but approaching it.
Well, you get those sort of different stages of grief, don't you? There's probably some kind of different stages of panic. I'll see if we can make one up. So yeah, nervously gnawing at fingernails, perhaps, but not quite, not the whole way down to the knuckle yet.
Yeah.
But all right then. So we'll end it there then. So that for our very first By the Minute Arsenal podcast of the season. So thank you very much to Matt.
Thank you. Good fun.
Thank you. And yes, I enjoyed that. It was cathartic. And hope you enjoy listening. And we will speak to you soon.